Jordan stood at the edge of the backyard, holding a heavy box filled with old photo albums. The sun was bright and laughter from the White family filled the warm air. He wore a light blue shirt, slightly wrinkled from moving boxes all morning. His short black hair was neat, and sweat traced his forehead. He glanced at the table where the Adler family sat, 4 of them. They looked like a picture-perfect family, but no one looked back at him. The White mother with shiny black hair sat closest to the lemonade pitcher. She was laughing at something her teenage son had just said. The boy had blonde hair and wore a blue shirt. Next to him, his sister, a young girl in a tea-pink top with long blonde hair, was showing her father something on her phone. The father, a tall man with a skin-colored coat and gray hair, nodded without looking away from his daughter. Jordan had been with them for more than a decade. He had arrived when the children were just babies. Back then, the Adlers had needed someone who could manage the house, fix things, help during tough times. He had started as a handyman, then stayed when they needed a babysitter, a driver, and later a friend. He never called himself family, but he had hoped, after all this time, they might see him as more than just someone who helps. He set the box down on the porch and turned to ask where the last few boxes should go. No one noticed him. They were too busy laughing, clinking glasses, and talking about the memorial plans for Mr. Adler's father who had passed away last week. When the kids had gotten older, Jordan had taught them how to ride bikes, helped them with homework, and even patched up their broken hearts when their friends betrayed them. When the mother had surgery 2 years ago, Jordan was the one who stayed at the hospital overnight, bringing coffee and calming nerves. When the father lost his job briefly, Jordan covered bills without asking for anything back. Still now, as they planned the funeral, Jordan wasn't asked to help. He wasn't even asked to attend. He picked up another box and walked it to the side of the house. Inside, the White mother poured drinks while chatting with a neighbor. "We're just keeping it small, just family," she said lightly. Jordan heard it. It hit him harder than he expected. The teenage son looked over for a second and met Jordan's eyes. Then he quickly turned away. Jordan couldn't tell if it was guilt or discomfort. He checked his phone. No messages, no address, no program update. The blonde daughter walked past him on her way to get a napkin from the kitchen. She didn't say hello. She didn't even smile. Jordan stood still, holding the empty box. Something inside him shifted. Maybe it was disappointment. Maybe just acceptance. He walked back to his truck and placed the last of the boxes in the back. He leaned on the side of the truck, staring at the family who once called him their rock behind closed doors. But outside, where it mattered, they didn't speak his name. A neighbor walked up to the driveway and asked, "Who's helping today?" The White mother smiled, pointing toward Jordan. "Oh, Pete just helps with the house stuff. He's been around for years." "What's his name again?" the neighbor asked. There was a long pause. The mother faked a smile and said, "You know what? I always forget, but he's great." Jordan heard it. He didn't flinch. He just got back in the truck and closed the door gently. The next morning, Jordan woke up early like he always did. Even though he wasn't working for the Adlers officially anymore, his body was used to the routine. He made coffee, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at his phone. Still no call, still no text from the family about the funeral details. He thought maybe they had forgotten. Maybe they were just too busy. But deep down he knew it wasn't a mistake. They had chosen not to include him. He remembered how close he had been to the kids. When the teenage son, Jacob, had his first basketball tryout, it was Jordan who stayed late every night to help him practice. When Jacob failed to make the team, it was Jordan who sat with him and said, "Next year you'll make it. Keep working." Jacob did make it the next year. And Jordan was in the stands cheering, though not seated with the rest of the family. He also remembered Sarah, the daughter. When she was 5, she got lost at the county fair. Jordan found her near the cotton candy stand and carried her on his shoulders, all the way back to her crying mother. Sarah had clung to him tightly and whispered, "You're my hero." He never forgot that moment, but now she passed by him like he was invisible. He finished his coffee and stood up. He walked to the small shelf where he kept a few framed photos. One was of Jacob's birthday party, Jordan holding a cake while the boy smiled wide. Another was of Sarah and Jordan sitting on the porch, painting rocks together. The third photo was of him and Mr. Adler, fixing the old fence, both sweaty and laughing. He touched the frame inside. Those days felt distant now. He drove into town to buy some flowers. Not for the family, not for the funeral. Just something for himself. A reminder that he had done good things, even if no one else remembered. At the store, the cashier, an older woman named Mrs. Elkins, smiled warmly. "You hear about the Adler's service tomorrow?" she asked. Jordan nodded. "I assumed you'd be giving a speech or something. You were always there." Jordan gave a soft laugh. "No one asked me to speak." Mrs. Elkins shook her head. "Some folks forget who really shows up for them." He thanked her, took the flowers, and stepped outside. He sat in his truck again and stared at the sky. Part of him wanted to show up anyway. Walk into that church and take a seat, even if no one invited him. But another part of him felt too tired, too hurt. He drove past the Adler house on his way back. The white father stood in the yard, talking to a man in a dark suit. Jordan slowed down. The teenage son was playing with a family dog, throwing a tennis ball across the grass. Sarah was blowing bubbles near the porch. No one looked up. Jordan drove on. Later that day, he got a call from someone he hadn't heard from in years. Dave, a neighbor from 3 houses down. "Hey man, I just wanted to say, I know what you did for that family. Everybody does. Don't let their silence erase that." Jordan smiled. It was a small thing, but it mattered. He went to sleep that night with a quiet heart. Not peaceful, but quiet. The day of the funeral arrived. Jordan woke up early again. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his clean light blue shirt hanging on the door. He had ironed it the night before, just in case he decided to go. He wasn't sure if he would walk in or just sit outside. He didn't know what he expected, but a part of him still hoped someone would call or text. No message came. He put on the shirt anyway. He looked at himself in the mirror and ran a hand over his short black hair. His eyes looked tired. Not from lack of sleep, but from everything he had carried for years. He drove slowly through town, passing places that held memories. The school where he had waited in the pickup line for Jacob and Sarah. The grocery store where he once rushed to buy ingredients when the Adlers forgot to plan dinner. Every corner held pieces of his time with them. When he reached the church, the parking lot was full. People stood outside in dark clothes, greeting each other. Jordan parked at the edge of the lot and stayed in the car for a few minutes. He saw familiar faces, neighbors, friends, coworkers of the Adlers, even some of the people Jordan had helped over the years. He saw Sarah wearing a black dress. Jacob stood near her in a gray suit. They looked older now, more distant. He finally stepped out of the truck, holding nothing but a small envelope with a card he had written the night before. It wasn't for the family. It was for Mr. Adler. A final thank you. Even after everything, Jordan wanted to honor the man who had once given him a chance. As he walked toward the church doors, a few people nodded at him. One man said, "Didn't expect to see you here, Jordan." Jordan nodded back. "Just came to pay my respects." When he reached the entrance, a woman handing out programs looked at him with a confused smile. "Name?" "Jordan." She checked the list. "Sorry, you're not on the guest list." "That's okay," he said softly, stepping aside. He didn't push. He didn't argue. Instead, he walked to the side of the building and sat on a bench under a tree. From there, he could hear the music playing inside. Voices, prayers, speeches. He opened the small envelope and reread his note. It was simple. It thanked Mr. Adler for trusting him, for giving him work, for letting him be part of the family's life, at least for a while. After the service ended, people began to come out. Jordan stayed seated, not wanting to draw attention. He watched as the Adler family stepped outside. The white father looked straight ahead. The white mother walked beside him, holding Sarah's hand. Jacob walked behind them. They didn't see Jordan. Or maybe they did and chose not to stop. He stood quietly, placed the envelope on the edge of the bench, and turned to leave. Behind him, someone called out, "Wait, Jordan." He turned around. It was Mrs. Elkins, the cashier from the flower shop. She had tears in her eyes. "You should have been inside," she said. "You would have wanted that." Jordan gave her a kind smile. "Maybe. But some doors stay closed, no matter what you give." He walked to his truck, started the engine, and drove away slowly. As he looked in the rearview mirror, the church grew smaller. The tree, the bench, the envelope, all faded behind him. But the weight of being forgotten stayed with him. Later that week, Jordan returned to work at a small repair shop in town. He had picked up a part-time job fixing old appliances. It wasn't much, but it kept him busy. The quiet hum of tools and machines gave him space to think. He didn't talk about the funeral to anyone. People had seen him outside the church, sitting alone. They didn't ask questions. They just gave him polite nods or said things like, "You doing okay?" And "You've been on my mind." He smiled and kept moving. Every day, he passed the Adler house on his way to work. He tried not to look, but his eyes always found the front porch. One morning, he saw Jacob out front, washing the family car. Jordan remembered showing Jacob how to do that when he was 9. Now the boy, almost a man, worked silently, earbuds in, not noticing the truck driving by. Jordan looked away and focused on the road. One evening, while packing up tools at the shop, a teenage boy walked in. It was Jacob. His face was a little thinner now, but his blonde hair and blue shirt made him instantly recognizable. "Hey," Jacob said, avoiding eye contact. "Hey," Jordan replied, surprised to see him. My mom's blender isn't working. She told me to get it fixed." Jordan took the blender without saying much. He plugged it in, tested the motor, and opened it to check the wiring. Jacob stood there awkwardly, shifting his weight. "You been all right?" Jordan asked calmly. Jacob nodded. "Yeah, just busy, school stuff." There was silence for a moment. Jordan kept working. Then Jacob said something unexpected. "I saw you at the church." Jordan didn't look up. "I know. I wanted to talk to you, but Mom said it might be better to give space." Jordan finally looked at him. "Space for who?" Jacob looked down. "I don't know." Jordan fixed the loose wire and ran the blender. It worked perfectly. He handed it back. "It's good now. No charge." Jacob hesitated. "You should have been mentioned, in the program. In the speeches. It wasn't right." Jordan didn't answer right away. He wiped his hands with a towel and leaned back on the counter. "I don't need to be in a program to know what I did for you all," he said slowly. "But it still hurt." Jacob looked guilty. "I told my mom. I said something. But she didn't want drama. She said it might confuse people." "Confuse them how?" Jordan asked. Jacob didn't have an answer. Before he left, Jacob said, "I never forgot what you did for me. Even if they don't say it, I remember." Jordan nodded. "That's enough for now." Jacob left and the shop was quiet again. That night, Jordan sat at home thinking, maybe he wouldn't get a public thank you. Maybe no one else would ever speak his name in a speech or put it in print. But at least one of them remembered, and maybe that memory was something that would grow over time. Still, part of him wished it didn't take being left out to finally be seen. A few days later, Jordan was at the grocery store, walking down the bread aisle, when he saw Sarah with her mother. Sarah was wearing a hoodie and leggings, her blonde hair tied back in a messy ponytail. She was pushing the cart while her mother, in a dark green jacket, read items off a list. Jordan paused for a second. He didn't plan to say anything. He just turned toward the cereal shelf and acted like he was busy. But Sarah saw him. "Jordan," she said, her voice unsure. He turned around slowly. "Hey, Sarah." Her mother looked up, her smile fading into something more polite. "Oh, hi." Jordan nodded, just grabbing a few things. Sarah smiled a little. "You still remember which bread we always got?" Jordan looked at the shelf. White sandwich loaf, middle row. Fourth from the left. She laughed softly. Still got it. Her mother forced a smile. We should get going. We have a lot to do. Sarah hesitated. Mom, can I talk to him for a minute? Her mother frowned but gave a small nod. I'll be by the milk section. Once she walked away, Sarah looked at Jordan and said, I saw the picture of the bench. Someone said you left a card. Jordan nodded. Just something I needed to do. I read it, she said quietly. The funeral director gave it to us later. He didn't expect that. Oh, you called him a good man, she said, even after everything. He was, Jordan replied, even if the rest of you forgot me. Sarah looked down. I didn't forget. I just didn't know what to say. Saying nothing says a lot, Jordan answered calmly. She bit her lip, clearly holding back emotion. I was a kid, but you were always there. Every school play, every birthday. I remember the dollhouse you built for me. Mom told everyone she bought it, but I knew it was you. Jordan looked at her carefully. Then why didn't you speak up? Because I didn't want to argue with her, she whispered. She didn't want you there. She said people wouldn't understand. He shook his head. People always say that, but what they really mean is they don't want to explain. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, Jordan. He softened his voice. You're not a kid anymore. If you see something wrong, don't stay quiet. Sarah nodded. I wish I said something then. You still can, he said. Not for me. For yourself. She wiped her eyes and gave him a small, grateful smile. Can I give you a hug? Jordan paused and then opened his arms. She hugged him tight like she used to when she was little. For a brief moment it felt like old times. When she pulled back, she said, Thank you for everything. He nodded. Take care of yourself. As she walked back to her mother, Jordan turned and grabbed the same bread they always bought. Even after everything, part of him still cared. He didn't need a thank you in a speech or his name printed in a program. But hearing the words from her, face to face, meant more than any public tribute ever could. 2 weeks later, Jordan was sitting on his porch, drinking tea and watching the street. The wind was calm, and the evening sun gave everything a soft glow. It had been a quiet day. Work had slowed down at the repair shop, and he didn't mind the silence. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. Thank you for always being there. I wish I had said it sooner. He stared at the message for a moment. He knew it was from Sarah. He didn't reply. He just smiled and put the phone down. Later that evening, a knock came at his door. It was Dave, the neighbor who had called him after the funeral. He stood on the porch with 2 cups of coffee in hand. Thought you might want some company, Dave said. Jordan nodded. Come on in. They sat together in the living room, sipping quietly for a few minutes. I saw that video Sarah posted, Dave said. What video? Jordan asked. It's going around. She posted a photo of you helping her ride her first bike. Wrote something about how you were always there when others weren't. Jordan leaned back in his chair, surprised. People are talking, Dave added. Lots of folks in town are sharing memories. Seems like more people remember you than you thought. Jordan didn't say much. He just nodded slowly. Later that night, he checked online. He found Sarah's post. There was a picture of little Sarah sitting on a red bike, her blonde hair in pigtails. Beside her, Jordan stood, holding the seat, smiling at the camera. The caption read, This man taught me how to ride, how to be brave, and how to stand tall. He was part of our family, even if we failed to say it. We let silence speak when we should have spoken loud. I'm sorry. I remember now. There were hundreds of comments. Some were from people in town, others from strangers who didn't know Jordan but were touched by the story. Many said the same thing. Thank you for being there, even when they didn't see you. Jordan scrolled through the comments not for praise, but to feel that maybe finally someone understood. For years, he had given everything to a family who only saw him when it was convenient. Now, after being left out of the obituary, after being pushed aside, his name was finally being spoken. He didn't need to go viral. He didn't want attention. But it felt good to know that his kindness hadn't been erased. The next morning, as he walked to the repair shop, a woman across the street waved at him. "Thank you for fixing my mom's heater last winter," she said. Jordan smiled. "Glad to help." A teenager on a bike rode past and shouted, "You're the guy from the Post, right?" That was cool. He just chuckled and kept walking. Inside the shop, his coworker Jim looked up from the counter. "You're kind of famous now." "Not trying to be," Jordan replied. "Well, Jim said you might not want the spotlight, but people are starting to see who you really were." Jordan picked up his tool bag and headed to the back room. He didn't do those things for recognition. He never expected his name to be written in bold letters or spoken in fancy speeches. He just wanted to be remembered for being there. And now, he finally was. A few days after Sarah's post went viral, Jordan got a letter in the mail. It was from the Adler family. Not an official envelope, just a plain white one with his name written in small letters. He opened it slowly, unsure what to expect. Inside was a handwritten note from the white mother. Her writing was neat and careful. "Jordan, I know we didn't treat you the way we should have. You were there for us through everything, and we didn't give you the respect you deserved. I'm sorry we didn't include you in the funeral. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. I hope someday you can forgive us. Claire." He read it twice. It was short, but honest. Still, he didn't feel much from it. Maybe it was too late. Or maybe his heart had already moved on. That weekend, Jordan went to the farmer's market. It was something he used to do with the kids when they were little. They loved picking out fresh fruit and tasting the free samples. This time, he went alone. As he picked apples from a wooden basket, he heard someone call out, "Jordan." He turned and saw a familiar face. It was Mr. Russell, the former principal of a local school. He was older now but still walked tall. "I just wanted to say," Mr. Russell said, shaking Jordan's hand, "I've watched you for years. The way you raised those kids, the way you stayed strong. You made a difference." Jordan smiled. "Thank you, sir. It never sat right with me how they left you out. But I'm glad people are finally seeing what you meant to that family." Jordan nodded. Took a while, but I guess truth always finds its way. Later that day, as he walked home with a bag of apples and fresh bread, he saw Jacob sitting on the front steps of the Adler house. Jacob stood up when he saw him and waved. "Hey, you got a minute?" Jordan paused. "Sure." Jacob walked up to him. "Mom wrote you, right?" "Yeah, I got it. I told her she needed to. I told her she had to say something." Jordan looked at him. "You did good." Jacob looked down at the sidewalk, kicking a pebble. "You know, after you left, the house felt different. Like something important was missing." Jordan stayed quiet. "We were too used to you being there," Jacob continued. "Always helping, always fixing. It's like we didn't even notice how much you held everything together." "Until I was gone," Jordan said. Jacob nodded. "Yeah, and I'm sorry for that. I really am." Jordan let out a long breath. "You were kids. Your parents should have known better." Jacob looked up. "Can I ask something?" "Go ahead. Can we meet sometime, like, just to talk? Maybe catch up. I've got a lot of things I wish I said years ago." Jordan thought about it. He had every reason to say no, but he also knew healing didn't come from staying angry forever. "All right," he said, "but you're buying the coffee." Jacob smiled. "Deal." As Jordan walked away, he felt something lighter in his chest. Maybe not peace, but something close to it. Not everyone in the family would ever understand what he meant to them, but at least the ones who did were starting to speak. And this time, they weren't staying silent. A month later, Jordan sat at a small coffee shop near the edge of town. It was quiet, with soft music playing and the smell of fresh bread in the air. He sat by the window, sipping his drink and watching the street. The seat across from him was empty, but he wasn't alone for long. Jacob walked in wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. He looked a little nervous but smiled when he saw Jordan. He sat down and placed his coffee on the table. "Thanks for meeting me," Jacob said. "No problem," Jordan replied. They sat in silence for a few moments, just drinking and looking out the window. Jacob finally spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about growing up, about you." Jordan looked at him. "What about me?" "You were there more than my dad was," Jacob said. "You taught me how to drive. You showed me how to change a tire. You helped me with my school project when no one else had time. I didn't get it back then, but now I do." Jordan nodded. "You were just a kid. I never blamed you." "But I should have said thank you," Jacob added. "I should have stood up for you at the funeral. I kept quiet because I didn't want to cause trouble. But that silence, it hurt you." Jordan looked him in the eye. "Yeah, it did. But hearing you say this now, it matters." Jacob looked down. "Sarah's post made me realize how much we took for granted. I read the comments. Strangers cared more than we did. People don't always show their feelings when it matters most," Jordan said, "but they can choose to do better later." Jacob nodded. "That's what I want, to do better." They talked for another hour, not just about the past, but about life, work, and the future. Jacob asked questions, listened closely, and didn't hide behind polite words. He was trying, and Jordan could see it. Before they left, Jacob reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" Jordan asked. "I wrote something," Jacob said. "A kind of letter. I've been writing a lot lately. It helps." Jordan opened it later, after he got home. It was written in messy handwriting but filled with emotion. "You were always more than a helper. More than someone who just worked for us. You were family. Not by name, not by blood, but by heart. I see it now. I'm sorry it took so long." Jordan folded the letter and placed it in a box where he kept things that mattered. Old photos, small gifts from the kids, and now this letter. That evening, Jordan went to the bench outside the church, the same bench where he had once left his goodbye note. This time, he wasn't there to say goodbye. He just sat and listened to the wind in the trees. People passed by, but no one bothered him. He thought about everything. The silence that once hurt him. The apology that came too late but still meant something. The kids who were now trying to fix what their parents broke. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to be in the obituary. What he needed was simple, to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. And now, finally, he was. Maybe not by all, but by the ones who mattered. And that was enough.